Welcome back. Reminder, coming up later on tonight, we're going to bring you the Colorado-Minnesota game. And as we continue to recognize Black History Month, Anson had a chance to sit down for a conversation with Wild forward Ryan Reaves.
Most of these guys have never lived through some of the stuff that Black athletes have. You know, they don't go through those day-to-day things that they feel that racism, or they've seen the racism, or their family's gone through it.
In the end of the day, this is not politics. This is human rights. It's time to do more than just kneeling and actually try to find ways to do something.
And something has to change right now.
You were very instrumental with players sitting out a few years ago and the game taking a pause to reflect on what's happening in society. Just take us into those conversations you're having with other players around the league.
You know, it's funny. I always say the conversations with other players, I was very happy with those because it wasn't a bunch of players that'd be like, oh, you know what, I get it. You know, I understand what you're going through and blah, blah, blah. It was, I don't get it, and I need to educate myself, so I'm not gonna speak out of turn on it. I'm gonna sit back and listen, educate myself, and then, you know, maybe we can have a conversation. You know, I sat in the bubble. I remember me and Nick Holden sat in my room for probably an hour, and, you know, we just discussed things that I've been through, things that, you know, affect players like me, and you know, especially younger players coming up. You know, when that stuff is said, how it affects them mentally. We had conversations. Guys got on social media. Guys got on interviews and discussed the issues.
Your father is involved in law enforcement as well. How was it, from your perspective, straddling that line? Because when everything went down with George Floyd a few years ago, you could relate to both sides.
Yeah. My stance has always been, cops aren't bad. They're just bad cops. Just like in any profession, any walk of life, you know, people aren't bad. They're just bad people. And so you can't just go out and group all cops under, you know, what a few have done over the last couple of years. I think it's more important not to defund the police, but to work with the police, bring these communities together so they don't have that, you know, that's such a big gap. You know, my brother-in-law is a cop, great guy. My dad's been in law enforcement, great guy. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I got the answer. The worst thing you can do is, you know, have the cops over here and the communities over here and just have them, you know, fighting constantly. You have to bridge that gap at some point.
The message coming from a predominantly white league has a very strong impact when it's coming from players like this.
You've got a big voice in the National Hockey League. We're both on the Player Inclusion Coalition. How do you see the league evolving to make the place, make hockey a better place and really ensure that people feel more included within the hockey community?
My biggest thing is, you know, you want to touch these communities that aren't, you know, that are predominantly non-white. If you want to bring hockey into those communities, you know, just saying, hey, come watch our hockey. And I think the first thing is you need to hire people from those communities. If you want to touch that community, who's the best person to, you know how to get to them? Well, people that live in that community, right? When we started that coalition, it was, what do you want to do most? And I said, anything with kids. You know, if we can reach the kids, that's grassroots. That's where everything grows from. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my mission.
You know, there's a big emphasis on diversity and inclusion. But I'd like to say that the game of hockey has always been diverse, but we have to do a better job of making sure the game is more inclusive.
And what advice would you give to young Black players of color coming up?
I would tell them that, you know, the color of your skin doesn't define you. It doesn't define what you can and can't do in life. You can do anything that any kid from any walk of life can do, as long as you put your mind to it. And you know, you're gonna run into hate, you're gonna run into racism, because that's just how the world is right now, and it's unfortunate. But you can't let that steer you off your path. If you can get to where I am, you try and incite some change too.
First off, great job by you with that interview.
Thank you.
But, you know, I think about Ryan Reaves, most entertaining interview that we have, but definitely the most thoughtful as well. He plays 800th game on Monday.
It's crazy because when I talked to him, his goal coming to the league was just to play 100 games. And then he played 100 games, he's thinking, I need to play 150 games. And to think he's at 800 games now, Hank, I mean, I'm not that surprised. A guy like Ryan Reaves, like usually tough guys when you play with are about your teammates, and it's not about themselves. And Biz, you know, you're a tough guy when you play the game. You're one of the best at this too. It's more than just Ryan Reaves. He's about everybody. So he's been a special guy in our league. We love having him on TNT.
Well, great job. We'll see Ryan Reaves later on tonight in our second game, the Wild and the Avs.